I'd like to call this the St. Cruz Assembly meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please do the roll call.
Mr. Coleman.
Here.
Mr. Steele.
Here.
Ms. Demboski.
Present.
Mr. Flynn. Present. Mr. Trainey.
Present.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Honored to be here.
Mr. Evans has asked to be excused. Mr. Peterson.
Present.
Mr. Starr has asked to be excused. Ms. Johnston. Here. Mr. Hall.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Steele, would you lead us in the pledge, sir?
Chairman,
Ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion to incorporate AO 2016-16S onto the agenda before us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any objection from the body? Not seeing any objection. Then what's going to happen tonight is you can testify on both items, both licensing and land use, okay? Now we're going to start tonight over here, Ed Graft. You're going to be first. I'm going to work my way down the row. As soon as Ed is there and he gets up, somebody else just come on up. We want to just do it orderly and get everybody to testify. Madam Clerk, anything else?
Do you want to combine the public hearings?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Mind the public hearings.
move to combine the public hearings on items 4A, 5A, and the document that was incorporated to the agenda.
Second.
Any objection? Not seeing objection from the body. Any objection, Jennifer?
No objection.
Okay. Okay. We'll start testimony. You have 3 minutes to testify. Please state your name, spell your last name, because we have somebody that writes it all down. And then we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Graff, sir, welcome.
Thank you, Ed Graff, GRAFF, Superintendent of the Anchorage School District. Good evening, Chairman Trainey, members of the Assembly. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. As a superintendent of the Anchorage School District, I want to address the issue of marijuana use, specifically within the drug-free school zones. I know there's consideration tonight for what that range should look like, and I'm here to urge your consideration to prohibit the production, use, sale of marijuana parallel to the federal guidelines, which is no less than 1,000 feet. And very briefly, you know, drug-free school zones are intended to improve the environments where children congregate, and the idea of keeping activity of sales of marijuana, distribution or use further away from our school zones, I think is a positive thing. And the idea that we have students who walk to school around those areas and not having to encounter that activity is one that I think makes the most sense in terms of when you look at the safety of our students and what we're trying to promote in the school environment, and certainly what we want to create for consideration for our students and our children. So with that, I just want to again reinforce my belief that this is something that needs to follow what the federal drug-free school zone policy is, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have following up later.
Questions from Assembly members? Doesn't seem to be any, Ed. Thank you. You got one? Go ahead, Mr. Flynn. Try to get this.
Mr. Graff, thank you for coming down. We have had some discussion around the federal rule and whether it is in fact 1,000 feet or 500 feet, or is it based on state guidelines and so on and so forth. Do you have any information that would imply that 500 feet versus 1,000 feet, for example, would be problematic in terms of ASD compliance with federal standards?
Through the chair, Mr. Flynn, this question was posed to us, and I've not been able to find anything within our current practice, our policy, but I think the bigger issue is, would we be jeopardizing access to grants and things of that nature? And I've not had an opportunity to to get that confirmation.
Okay.
But I appreciate you asking the question, and I do have staff looking into that.
Okay, when you have more information, just forward it to us. We're not going to take action tonight anyways, but we would like to know what we're doing before we do it.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward.
So my name is Rhonda, R-O-N-D-A, last name Marcy, M-A-R-C-Y. I'd like to follow up a little bit with the superintendent's comments there. One, it would be nice to see leadership that would look at having the school district have rules that children who are taking CBD and other cannabis therapies, that they have a way to get their medicine while they're at school. And there is no federal policy of how far away a cannabis shop is on any federal land or schools or anything like that, because the leadership with the federal government is not up to the level where cannabis shops are being discussed as from a certain distance from the school. I will say it should be treated one more as a vegetable, and people should look at it as cannabis nutrition is something that came with human beings throughout our backgrounds of all our life. The nutrition that comes with this plant is off the scale. I was this summer down in Kentucky, where the University of Kentucky is on their second year of growing hemp and CBD hemp, which the only reason that it's called CBD as opposed to marijuana is because it is less than 3% of one of the 111 cannabinoids that the plant contains. So I really encourage you people not to be so scared of the plant and the progress that's coming. Start looking at some of the health aspects. I know, Mr. Peterson, before I had counseled you maybe to spend a little more time on Google and knowing some of the background, because there's a tremendous amount of information out there about it. 500 feet is certainly reasonable. A lot of reasonable people and some even unreasonable people with the state of Alaska have spent a lot of time hashing out distances. 500 feet is perfectly reasonable in Alaska when we don't sell alcohol in our grocery stores like many places do. You'll find that it's better to let it integrate under, it's a vegetable. It doesn't become a drug until it's chemically altered by applying heat to it. There's a lot of good nutritional reasons. It has a profile better than alfalfa, what the University of Kentucky says. There's a lot of difference in what is hemp, what is marijuana, what is cannabis. And when I speak about it, I speak of it as one plant. It is cannabis. Whatever we want to call it, there's many products that come from it. We shouldn't be penalizing students who might smoke it or use it in a non-smoking fashion and still show up at school ready to do their algebra class. Some of the children, it works better for them than Ritalin because it does not have the side effects. Last weekend, there was the 2016 Cannabis Health Summit. There was a lot of doctors attended. I encourage you all to look into that. Thank you very much. Is there any questions?
Thank you, ma'am. There are no questions. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. Otherwise, we'll end the meeting if there's no one who wants to say anything. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Tom Layu. It's spelled L-A-Y-O-U. I'm here to speak on basically what is the question, or a question of whether or not the cannabis clubs should be allowed to exist. I would like to preface it by saying that I'm not affiliated with any club outside of my membership, but I do spend time at one. And it is not quite a bar, but it is surrounded by bars, lots of bars. And I spent time at a lot of them, and when I did, I often enough did something notably dumb. I considered an example, but we don't have enough bad coffee. I can say that I have firsthand experience engaging in all kinds of unhindered and outrageous stupidity that you can get started on at the bars, and I know because my friends and a few police reports tell me. The fact that no one remotely questions the substance fueling these bars, which was, in fact, once under strict prohibition, that we fully accept alcohol's place in appropriate establishments intended for adults' consumption while inhibiting people who consistently behave responsibly under their evening accoutrement of choice is, in the plainest terms, stupid. The state of Alaska voted to legalize marijuana, and I look forward to a time when responsible consumers can see meaningful results of that and not worry about legislators fucking with the people and organizations actively involved in the process of enacting the will of the people.
Thank you, sir. And what, ma'am? Welcome to the meeting, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Chris Usher, E-U-S-C-H-E-R. I know you guys recognize me and my husband from a lot of the meetings that we go to, all of them. I wanted to thank you. The work session that we first went to a couple Fridays ago was a little disheartened, but last Friday was the first time we left in a positive manner. Thank you for being open-minded and seeing what we could do for the industry as well as the state. I did have a question, though, about overlapping the licensing. 1080-711 says that the municipality will not issue a license for a single, there will only one for a single premises, but then cultivation facilities are permitted in B3 district when co-located. So there's kind of a discrepancy there, and I was just hoping to get a little clarification on that.
We're going to have our people look into that. I don't know, ma'am.
Okay.
But thanks for bringing that up, and thanks for coming to the meetings.
You bet.
Mr.
Thank
Chair,
you.
if I can.
Yes.
I can give you a very brief
Ms.
without
Bradley.
looking. My understanding from Erica McConnell's, there's Erica right there. It has to be separated by a wall and 2 separate licenses. So though it might be on the same lot, it can't be like my living room and my dining room. It has to be separated by a wall. Is that right, Erica? Yep.
But if you had a separating wall underneath the same roof,
Well, and
would that
separate
be
entrances.
considered?
Separate entrances. It has
Okay.
to. So it might be the same piece of land, but they're going to be just like a strip mall. You might have 5 businesses in the same building, but they're separate entrances, separate locations. Does that make sense?
it does.
Okay.
It does.
I hope that helps. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else wishing to testify, please come forward.
On your behalf, Mr. Chair, there's a lot of nice seats right up front. People are welcome.
There are
to
great
sit there.
seats up front. It's not a church. We're not going to call on
They
you.
can just pop up the moment
Come on
there's
up.
a spot available.
How you doing?
Welcome to the meeting, sir.
My name is Bryant Thorpe, B-R-Y-A-N-T-T-H-O-R-P. I'd like to speak on the zoning and what's proposed. Planning and zoning has submitted a couple of recommendations, and specifically the I-1 suggests that at one time or another that it's only going to be allowed to grow and not have our retail locations. I believe planning and zoning has agreed that they're going to push that forward, but I believe you have to make the final determination on that. And I'd like to just encourage that the I-1 zoning should be allowed to have retail on it. And the way it was originally written, it wasn't. But I believe it is coming through the planning and zoning that way. And I'd like to just encourage that to be the case. We are limited on land, and I-1, without the I-1 retail would be difficult.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions?
Anybody else wish to testify? Welcome, ma'am.
My name is Carly Major. That's M-A-J-O-R. I also wanted to bring up that point on industrial zone land and potential to have retail in the same space as a cultivation facility. With the proposed zoning, it's been very difficult to find locations, and if you have one space as one owner, to be able to have both uses in the spot would be very beneficial. On the same note with the zoning, as it currently stands with the license conditions, you cannot lease to any other person for any other reasons in the same space. I wanted to propose to potentially change that so that if there is a wall and a separate entrance that you can have a different tenant. It's going to be about 6 to 9 months after we get the license before we're actually going to be able to receive it. Any income, and we would, to be able to have potential for certain buildings, to be able to get rent and have the steady stream of income in that time would be very beneficial. Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi, ma'am. The clerk would like me to ask everybody, if when somebody comes up, like in your case, to testify, then get 2 more people behind you to testify, so we don't have a lot of time, okay? Thank you. And please make sure that you're speaking in the microphone, because that microphone just doesn't pick a lot of things up. Thank you.
I'm short. I had to pull it down.
And I know you're not shy, so I don't have to worry about embarrassing you.
I'll yell, whatever. I'm Teresa Collins, Collins. Good evening, guys. I just want to say thank you for all of the hard work that you guys have been doing, and definitely I agree with Chris's notion earlier of last Friday's meeting being a lot more positive. We felt really good going out of that meeting. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to address. So first off, are we separating, real quick, a question, are we separating between zoning and the licensing, or are we doing them all at once? Okay. So zoning, schools, federal recommendation is 1,000 feet. That is a recommendation to the states. Alaska has adopted a 500-foot because of our other cities. And I can tell you personally from downtown and different areas that the 1,000 feet is really going to hinder a lot of businesses doing business in Anchorage. Also, I would like to propose to you guys that you guys think about variances. I spoke with Cynthia Franklin with the Marijuana Control Board last night, and she said with alcohol it's 200 feet, but the Assembly can approve variances for less than 200 feet. So if we allowed variances, then we can come to you, and if our neighbors are okay with us being there, then maybe we can take a look at changing that in the future. Parking in your zoning. Right now for cultivation, it's 1 parking spot for every 1,000 feet. And most warehouses don't have that much parking. There's a lot of warehouses that don't. So that's becoming a problem with properties as well. B3, I don't think retail should be required in B3. As a cultivator, if you're going to allow for cultivation in B3, as a potential cultivator in the future, we do not want to retail. We don't want people to know that we're there, and it's a safety issue and a security issue in our eyes. Also allow for B2A, B2B, and B2C in downtown. If you don't allow that, there's not going to be a lot of retail locations downtown if you take a look at the zoning down there. As far as the dual licensing, the testing for pesticides, the $500 cost, having somebody come in, an enforcer come in and take a sample, and that cost being $500 per sample could really make or break a retail. And I've talked to you guys about that before, so I think that's something we really need to do some work on. Obviously, I want you guys to take out marijuana clubs, prohibiting them. I'd like for you to allow them, and I'd love to work with you guys to create something for them. Also, on-site consumption. I know Mr. Flynn introduced an amendment to carve out the guidelines for that. I think that's awesome. I think if we have something to give the state, then maybe they'll follow suit with that. So I thought that was really great. And that's all I really had to talk about today.
Let's see. Ms. Dombrowski has a question, ma'am.
Thank you. And actually, I just want to say very quickly, Teresa, thank you for giving me a tour of your club and educating me. I appreciated it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Peterson has a question, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I just wanted to also thank you, Teresa, for giving me the tour yesterday. It was very educational, and you have a very nice facility there, and I'm trying to think positive and hopeful that things will work out for y'all.
All right, thank you.
Don't appear to be other questions. Thank you, Teresa.
Okay, thank you.
Look at the meeting, sir.
Good evening. Bruce Schulte, SCHULTE, the Alaska Marijuana Industry Association. First of all, I just want to thank the members of the Assembly for all the time and attention they've given to this issue. It's well appreciated. Particularly, I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Hall for herding his committee through months of deliberation. So thank you again. I would like to echo what you've heard already. As to last week's meeting, the discussion last Friday was very positive, and I realize that was just discussion, but it was very encouraging that the members were looking at a lot of different possibilities. I did want to speak to 2 issues in particular. One is the testing. While I agree in principle with the imperative to test for contaminants and pesticides and so forth, having talked to a number of experts, I'm not convinced that we've yet focused in on a truly effective and appropriate testing regime. I think that issue may warrant some further study. We may be testing for the wrong substances in the wrong way. I don't have a solution there, but I just think that could be a broader discussion. And since it won't actually be an issue for 4 months or more, it might warrant a little bit closer scrutiny, and that's something I would be happy to be involved with, and I know there's a number of experts way more knowledgeable than me that would like to contribute to that discussion. The other thing I want to speak to is the 1,000-foot versus a 500-foot setback. The Cole memo, which has been mentioned in numerous discussions, it basically says that the federal government is expecting states to make reasonable efforts to keep drugs away from children, which I wholeheartedly support. It does not actually mention a drug-free school zone, nor does it anywhere say 1,000 feet. The drug-free school zone is a state issue. The 50 states are free to set their own. Colorado, Washington, and Oregon have a 1,000-foot school zone. That's why it's become problematic there. Alaska has a 500-foot drug-free school zone. And that is a fairly supported fact. If you find yourselves deliberating between 500 and 1,000 feet, I would offer this as a compromise. The only one of these licensed facilities that it will ever be conducting retail transactions is the retail stores. Cultivation, processing, and testing facilities will not. They are going to be locked door access, controlled access facilities. Most of them will not even have windows. They're not going to be carding people because the doors are locked shut. The retail stores will be carding folks, but there's a huge difference between those, and differentiating between retail stores and these other facilities will make all the difference in the world in terms of making available industrial and commercial properties available for this industry. So please consider that as an alternative. Thanks again for your time, and that's all I have to say.
Let me see if there's any questions, sir. Not today.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Thank you. My name is Andrew Campbell. Last name is Campbell. I'd like to second the comments of my friends Chris Usher, Teresa Collins, and Bruce Schulte. Also, I'd like to just talk about marijuana clubs. I'd like to just say that I think that they're definitely something that we should have in the city. Co-location of marijuana businesses, you talked about that, and appreciate that clarification on that. On-site consumption, I hope, is something that you all allow, because it's going to keep it indoors. Obviously, you guys don't want it in the public, so if it's indoors, it's going to be better for the public. I think that variances should be allowed, as they are allowed with alcohol businesses as well. Something that I would like a little clarification on is the commercial horticulture by right for large rural lots. I'm not sure that's something that's really been talked about too much. I know at one meeting there was some talk about whether that was allowed or not, and I think that one of the attorneys misspoke and said that it wasn't. So do you have any information on that?
We'll see what we can find out for you on that.
Thank you, sir. That's all I have.
Thank you. We have a question for you. Ms. Dombrowski, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, with your indulgence, I see Erica looking it up right now. And I know we've gone back and forth with this, and I know I've had a number of questions in the last week about commercial horticulture. Would it be appropriate to ask Erica for the answer right now?
Good. Go ahead. You have the time.
Through the chair, Ms. Dombrowski, I was looking up the 200-foot
Oh,
variance.
there.
What was the question?
The question that has come up a couple of times about commercial horticulture and by right allowances. Can you elaborate on what is and isn't allowed? Specifically in my area, I'm looking at R7. But can you clarify for us what the rules are with that?
As the draft is written, 2016-3S, there is no cultivation in any residential district.
So even in districts where they could do it in, like maybe have a small vegetable garden or little farm.
Correct.
With marijuana, it is not allowed.
It's not allowed.
Okay, that was my understanding. I hope that gives you some clarity.
Thank you.
Did you get your answer, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wishing to testify, please come forward. Welcome, ma'am.
Greetings. My name is Sarah Williams. Thank you to everyone. It seems about a year ago we sat in this same room and we discussed banning this, and I've seen tremendous growth in many of you, especially Ms. Domboski, in the changes she's made in learning and educating yourselves about this process. So I really, really want to thank you for that. There's a couple of things I want to reiterate. A lot of these things have already been said, but I do want to mention specifically them. The on-site consumption is not just smoking. It's not edibles. There's topicals to be considered. There's a lot of different ways that people can consume. And if we were to outright ban them because of a smoking ban, well, I'd like to bring two places into question that are right here, Coots and Bernie's Bungalow. Both of them allow smoking in designated areas. So they operate here in the city, and it's a designated situation for them. So I would recommend really paying attention to that on-site consumption and getting creative with it. The three other things I'd like to mention have to do with, of course, the zoning specifically. Finding a location has been really, 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 really difficult. So first of all, to echo Mr. Schulte on the 500 feet from a school, that's plenty of space, and it is not a federally mandated space. So we do have that freedom to choose that. Secondly, though, opening it up to I-1 zoning as well for retail and including on the variances as well are just the things that I wanted to echo and be in support of. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Domboski, do you have a question, ma'am? No. Okay, sorry. Welcome, sir.
Sean Smeeden, signature gatherer on the first campaigns held in 2002 for ARR on the legalization of hemp and marijuana for adults. Also just someone who gives a hoot. I would like to address issues Mr. Schulte raised, and also as a conservative-minded voter, issues that need to be weighed on this. First off, therapeutic use does not constitute it being a drug or regulated as such in regards to drug-free school zones, although I do think that zoning needs to be held to account. I think it should be like the framework in place for alcohol or, on-premises sites in regards to alcohol. CHAR or something like that should handle it. Also, no good ever comes from a vacuum of power or regulatory vacancy. It just never ends up good. So I do urge, a framework to be agreed upon ASAP, because that's the only good way for this to, be resolved. Also, the tax money we're missing out on every day is enormous. All people can agree, we as a state, as a municipality, need that cash we're going to generate from taxation. Also, we have before, seen that the sky doesn't fall with legal marijuana. Late 80s, early 90s showed us that without a framework of regulation. Also, if you have on-premises uses, you don't have people walking through clouds of smoke, in parks. That's it, I guess.
Thank you, sir. And the nice thing is, on the 5th of April, you should be able to vote on the marijuana tax. We've got it coming on the ballot. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Good evening. My name is Tom Schmid, SCHMID. I sent you an email last night to all the assembly members, and I did receive an email back from Ms. Gray. Thank you. I'm just going to kind of reiterate and see if there was any questions. The application process, both the ordinance and the state regs are well over 200 pages. I am challenged to try to understand everything in a very short order. The special use permit especially is of concern to me. If we comply with the state regs and we apply and we start that process, we're going to be out for, if I have a retail and a cultivation license and I've applied, I'm out $11,000. I may end up with a state license, and you or whoever's doing the special use permit, I should say, we could be denied in the end. What I would advocate for is having it done in conjunction with one another and kind of terminating at this, or hopefully with a successful outcome at the end, coming to a conclusion together. Otherwise, there is a substantial amount of financial commitment, which not everyone has the wherewithal. We haven't. Not all of us are big hitters in this. A lot of small-time people that, with good intentions, want to get into this. It's been very educational, and I sure appreciate it's given me a new respect for the Assembly and the amount of time it must have taken to get to where we are. I've only been at this for a couple months, but it's been nonstop. It doesn't leave much room for sleep at night. The neighborhood responsibility plan, I would really advocate for keeping that at a low level. We plan to, and more as opposed to being required, making it recommended, at least for now, and see how things go, instead of putting so much burden on us. There's a lot of requirements here that we're all trying to comply with and understand, and I'm hoping that you'll consider that. The state regulations and 2016-3S and 21.03105, the special land use permit, it requires the title, lease, and other documentation to show that the applicant's right to possess the proposed license premise, that we have an original signature. I would advocate that we do away with that, as it seems in this day and age that it's kind of onerous and well accepted just to get an electronic copy. Reiterate some of the other people that have testified tonight. The pesticides and herbicides, it is an issue in other places, but we all strive for organic. Thank you.
Questions from Assembly members? Mr. Honeman has a question. Mr. Honeman.
Yeah, just consider treating us fair, and I think you are, that this is an important thing to, and it's been very difficult for the people trying to do this. They're putting a lot of time and energy into this to try to do it right. My group is all professionals. I think we're the kind of people you want in this business, and I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Dombrowski, you have a question, ma'am?
My question is for the clerk. Amanda, I just wanted to clarify, our goal is to try to run as concurrently with the state application process as possible. Could you just give me a couple little quips about that real quick, so just to clarify for anybody else who might be concerned?
Our goal is to run it similarly to how we currently do with liquor license. The only exception, or the only difference, is that it would be processing a separate license for the municipality. But as we do with the liquor licenses, we receive them from the state and we begin processing them through as the local governing body within a dedicated timeline. And that would be our goal with the marijuana licensed establishments, is to follow with the state's timeline and process them as quickly as possible within that timeline.
So people don't have to wait till they have the state license in hand to apply with the city. Once they apply with the city, that application, they can file with this, or with the state rather, then they can start the process with us too.
It would be a concurrent.
Perfect. Okay, so I hope that helps, Mr. Schmidt. You're welcome.
Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Hello, my name is Kevin McKinley. It's McKinley. I've been a business owner in the state of Alaska for over 25 years. I've had a business in downtown Anchorage for approximately 5 years, and I'm looking to hopefully open another business in downtown Anchorage sometime in May. With the school zoning the way it is, it would make it a lot tougher to find any type of space to be downtown. I currently have a place that I'm looking at. It does fit all the zoning requirements except for it needs, well, I'll get into the B2A second. The school zone, if there was a school to move into downtown, it would be almost impossible to be anywhere downtown with a recreational store. Also, I would like to talk about B2A. There's a lot of buildings in downtown Anchorage that are actually B2A and not B3. I feel that B2A would be suitable for a recreational store. And again, I want to thank you for your time. And I just want to be a responsible business owner out there like I've been doing for years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There are no questions. Anybody else wish to testify?
Hi, good evening. Alan Cornelison, Cornelison. Thanks a lot for the special assembly meeting tonight. It's very appreciative. Just one concern I have is on making concentrates and the heavy zoning that we have for folks that want to run a bakery. Maybe they've already got some concentrated oils that are already made and all they're going to do is cook cookies or make bars or what have you. That heavy industrial zoning that we needed seems a bit aggressive. I would think that if you could have, if you're having the tracking and you're having the security, being able to bake in any zoning that you can have a commercial kitchen or a bakery would be very, very helpful and much less expensive. Also, as far as concentrating goes, I completely understand if you have explosive gases or flammable materials or high pressure materials being in an industrial zone, but you know, some concentrations are done with butter, just like we do in our home with garlic and olive oil and whatnot. It seems to me that that restriction could be loosened up, or that zoning could be loosened up a little bit and allow that, again, with the tracking, with the security, to happen in a commercial area where any kind of commercial kitchen would be allowed. And that was my only comment.
Question from assembly members. Thank you for your testimony, sir.
Thanks.
There are no questions. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
Frequent flyer back here again, huh?
Yes. My name is Cheryl Bowie, and I just want to thank you guys for all of the hard work. It's been a really interesting process. One of the things I did want to assure you guys about, I've been doing some research. It's a part of a project that I'm doing. And according to the National Survey on Drug Use per Household, the marijuana use for teenagers is actually going down, even though the perceived risks are being, even though they perceive the risk of marijuana as less dangerous as they used to perceive it in other surveys in the past, use is actually declining in some age groups. And so actually the 12 to 17 year range. And I just encourage that as we move forward in this process, that we spend some time to take a look at good drug education policy. I think that it's up to us, I think it's always been up to us as a community to deal with drug prevention, harm reduction, drug education policies in a really responsible and inclusive manner. I think that the marijuana legalization movement has really brought some of that stuff forward. I think it's refreshing. In Illinois right now, they might be losing their medical marijuana program, and the only recommendation that came out from the doctor that oversees the program was to allow people who are using heroin to have access to medical marijuana. It's actually helping people come off of opioids and hard drugs. And so I think that we just need to be cognizant of some of the things that are happening across the country. I think that we need to be responsible in how we implement this policy, and I think that we need to engage people and help educate people on the right stuff. So I really appreciate everything you guys have done.
Question from Assembly members. Don't have any questions. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Should let everybody know Bill Sturr is on the line, apparently, so we've got him with us, too. Hey, Bill. No, maybe not. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
My name is Brian Coyle, and I'm basically up here to introduce myself. I haven't been up here before. I've only recently got involved in this effort. My plan is to open a testing lab, and I've gone through the proposed regulations at state level and yours as well in some detail, and I'd love to give you some detailed feedback in another forum because we could get into the weeds pretty quickly. The other thing I'd like to do is just suggest that you take a different perspective on some of these actions as well, and that's to look at the medical users in the community. That's what really got me interested. I'm not a long-time marijuana user. I used it in college 30 years ago and then basically didn't use it for 25 or 30 years. And for pain management, I started trying it out last year as an alternative to hydrocodone, which I didn't like, and I find it to be more effective, and it doesn't make me as stupid as the hydrocodone does, let's say. So if you think about the medical users in the community, they've had a legal right to use this substance, and it's pretty well accepted by the state of Alaska that it's a legitimate use. But they don't know what they're taking, they don't know the potency, they don't know how pure it is. Kind of a disservice to people in the community, I'd say. If those services can be made available to them as soon as possible, you'd be helping out a lot of people. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Question from Assembly members. Mr. Flynn has a question, sir.
Oh, sorry.
Over here. It's okay.
All right.
As opposed to that Flynn over there. If you could send us some information about just type of your manifesto, your epistle, whatever you want to call it, about your concerns or questions or perspective on testing, that would be useful.
Sure.
I think that's one of the aspects that has had a little less focus, and we could use a little help.
And like any good scientist will tell you, there's always more testing you can do.
I know a lot of chemists.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Train. My name is Lee Haywood, Haywood. I've been kind of acting as a cannabis emissary of sorts, bringing people together on both sides of the issue and trying to find some reason in between there. I'm here tonight to oppose the ban on clubs here in Anchorage. I just want everybody to know that cannabis is a real social in nature, and the public smoking ban to consume cannabis, they need to have a safe place to gather. The stigma and the fear and conditioning needs to be resolved, and the only way we can do that is through education and having places for people to go. We take a lot of steps down at potluck events to re-educate folks and give them an opportunity to know where their tolerance levels are, to know what cannabis is. We play, different films and things for people to view and look at. We educate them on different apparatuses that we have there in order to consume with. We educate them on the use of edibles. And so we're up over 2,000 members now. And that should be a testament of what we're trying to do downtown. And we're trying to act as professional people down there and give people a place to go. The social aspect of this really needs to be examined. And potluck has kind of served as the practicum for the state to this point. It's very difficult in this business to try to trailblaze an idea or trailblaze for this industry. And we come up against a lot of hurdles. But we try to continue to educate and continue to say we want to work with the state, we want to work with the city in order to garner those relationships and show you what we're trying to do there. Our age demographic down at potluck events is from 21 all the way up to 78, all different types of socioeconomic backgrounds, diversities. You have your normal, what you might call a pothead, to somebody who's a politician sitting there. And we want to continue to promote that type of idea. We tell our security all the time they have the easiest job ever, because at the end of the night everybody's just hugged up and saying goodbye, and it's not like an alcohol type of environment. So we encourage all the assembly members to come down. We thank Pete Peterson and Ms. Dembowski for coming down and actually viewing the club and seeing that we're not in there killing babies or doing anything crazy down there. We're actually a social club, a private social club, and we want to remain as such. I also want to reiterate some of my colleagues' concerns as far as variances are concerned. I think that if a church doesn't have a problem with us being there, then I think we should be allowed to be there. We are not trying to garner advertisement from outside, and we're trying to promote a safe place for people to consume.
Mr. Peterson has a question. Sir, Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for coming tonight, Lee. And when I took the tour yesterday, the thing that stuck in my mind and came back to me several times when I was thinking about it later last night was the agreements you make the members sign when they first come in.
Absolutely.
And I think it would be educational for all the members of the Assembly if you could possibly email that to us or send it to the clerk and she could forward it to us.
Yeah, we'll forward a copy of the rules.
Because I think they would see that what you're trying to do.
We're taking certain safety steps like double checking IDs. We take steps as letting people know that this is a sharing only event. We sell no marijuana down at the club, and in fact it's very frowned upon if you do so. We take each individual member, walk them around the club, introduce them to different folks that are in the club, and try to make ways for them to see how this can socially be acceptable. And it's also been an industry hub for people to gather and cumulative have ideas where it's kind of been hidden in the past before. So, yes, any more questions?
And I could see that it'd be a place for industry people to gather to get some training, trade secrets, that type of thing.
Yeah, our second name is the 420 headquarters.
Is that all, Pete?
That's it. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Steele, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a question that I've been mulling over with regards to the social clubs, and now groups of people get together and go down and go drinking, and somebody's a designated driver. What do you do in terms of designated driver, or to help alleviate the possibility of your members getting into trouble after a night at the club?
Well, we do sort of the similar things that the clubs does, but we kind of try to take it a step further because we know we're under the microscope as well. So we provide cabs for folks. We also provide a shuttle service for our larger events. We provide lemonade and sugars, free candy to all of our members as well when they come in case they want to kind of counter effect what marijuana can do as well. So we're taking safety steps as far as using mouthpieces within our club as well to, in a social situation, you're passing around a joint or you're passing around a pipe, and we have designated lanyards. They look kind of funny, but they actually work for the purposes of controlling disease and things like that as well.
I was thinking, in terms of the car dealers, when you take your car in for servicing, they provide a shuttle bus or something like that. But and a lot of people don't get that stone. But if you're in an environment where it's in the air, it's hard to not breathe.
Well, you know what? We've done some testing ourselves at the club and found that those people that are just subjected to that environment for over a 10-day period have not shown positive on any THC in their systems at all. And those are people that were volunteering down at the club or just there because they want to be there for the event. We are an events company first.
Mr. Steele, anything else? Thank you for your testimony, sir. Appreciate it. Anybody else wish to testify on this item, please come forward. The clerk reminds me, please state and spell your last name.
Good evening. My name is Standing Bear. Government name is Jonathan Schumacher. Last name S-C-H-U-M-A-C-H-E-R, Jr.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to testify on a couple things tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to come and stand in front of you and have this opportunity. One is the social club aspect. I'm a medical marijuana patient with the state of Alaska registered. I don't enjoy medicating around my child. I would prefer that I go somewhere else to do it, and having somewhere to do it safely is just common sense in my book. I don't know about anybody else, but having a safe place not around children is A-okay with me. The 500-foot limit with schools and churches and things of that nature, if you really want to get into that, Marinol is a byproduct of cannabis, and it's sold in pharmacies. So if there's a pharmacy that's anywhere within 500 feet of a school or a church, then it needs to go, according to that. I know there's a lot more, but I'm having a hard time thinking about it right now.
Just take your time, sir.
Thank you. I just wish that we could all coexist together, and there's no reason that we can't. Cannabis is not a bad plant. The United States government holds the only patent on cannabinoids, which are found naturally in the human body. There's no reason why we can't all coexist. I have submitted over 34 pages to the Medical Marijuana Control Board, which they didn't accept because of policies pertaining to my HIPAA and such. But if you guys would like the chance to review that, I can email you the same pages supporting my cannabis use and for the treatment of my Tourette syndrome. And I think that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Thank you.
No questions. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. Welcome, sir.
Hello. My name is Dan Koepke, Koepke, and thank you for granting me the privilege of speaking before you this evening. I come to you as a scientist, as an educator, and also as someone who's dedicated to improving quality of life in the communities where I live. And I've done that here in the state of Alaska, everywhere from physical therapy clinics to assisted living homes. Currently a small business owner as well. I assist massage therapists, and I really would like to come, from a healthcare perspective in terms of being able to provide an alternative treatment, which in our community I think would be relatively safe, especially if we compare it to spice or alcohol or some of the prescription drugs in particular. I've worked as an educator for the state, and I think that what I'm asking of you this evening is it's a plea to give small business owners and for those in the community who really do care about quality of life, give them an opportunity to contribute to the community. And you can do that by making the regulations as accessible as possible for the layman. I've got a master's degree and speak a couple languages, and I respect how burdensome going through those regulations are. So I just really am pleading with you that you respect the opportunity for cannabis to contribute more revenue than oil, and to give us a break, so to speak. I also ask what advice you might have for a small business owner who wants to come at this righteously, not altogether for profit, intentions related to profit or for economical reasons, but because I truly believe in the opportunity to test the substances and make this alternative therapy accessible. So I'm curious about what suggestions you might have for someone who isn't trying to make $1 million and hit the lottery, but is really trying to do this with righteous intentions to help people on a small scale.
Mr. Bowski?
Might as well. I have no problem if you want to make $1 million, go for it. But I would say be very candid, do your homework, and be transparent. If you make a mistake, just own it and go and talk immediately to the licensing official, which is the clerk. It's municipal clerk. Just go to the clerk's office. But I don't think anybody here and in the city is trying to make rules so onerous that people can't follow them. This is a new industry, there's bound to be things that we're going to have to go back and change or fix or make better. And so when you come across those, please feel free to contact us, talk to us. We don't know if you don't tell us. I've had an education like no other in the past year, and so we only learn by talking to each other. So I would just say be transparent, be candid, and know the rules. And if one of the rules doesn't make sense, we need to know that.
Thank you.
Mr. Flynn, sir.
I just had to take your time. Don't sign a lease until you know what you're doing. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to testify? Open the meeting.
How are you today? My name is Adele Davis. I own and operate Alaska Green Cross, and I'm one of the...
Speak up. The thing doesn't work well.
My name is Adele Davis. I'm one of the owners and operators of Alaska Green Cross and one of the founders of Alaska's Green Angels. I am here today to remind everyone on both sides that hopefully all of our goals is safe and responsible access to cannabis for the adults here in Alaska, 21 and over, and hopefully for our tourist industry as well. I believe in following the rules. I believe that, with my military background, I'm used to walking the line when it comes to regulations and statutes. I don't walk in the face of them. I don't try to find, this niche or that corner to make your job harder. What I am seeking to do is make everyone's job easier. I have come up on a tracking and point of sale system that I've gone around the country investigating these systems, coming from a point of view of safety of a mother that's already lost a life, and I want to make sure that any member of my family involved in the industry is absolutely as safe as possible. So in the interest of the safety of the industry workers, of the consumers, and of complete and total transparency, I strongly advise the Assembly as well as our state leaders to take a look at the C4Ever systems. They are set up to where you, the lawmakers, set the values within the computers, and the owners do not have the ability to cheat them. Let me say again, you and the state lawmakers set the values within those systems, and it keeps the owners from, kind of protects them from themselves, so to say, for those who sometimes have trouble following the rules or try to look for corners to cut. This system takes that out. And for me, as someone going into the industry, it takes care of a lot of the headache. And it will keep everything transparent, and that's the reason it's called the C4Ever system. I have no interest financially in this system other than wanting to see everyone be as safe and responsible as possible. Anyone that has any questions about the system, anyone in the Assembly, state lawmakers, or anybody in the industry, hit me up and I will point you to their website, or you can look it up yourself.
Ma'am, Mr. Peterson has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I was wondering if you would say that name more slowly and maybe spell it so people in the audience could write it down, because some of them may want to be looking for a point of sale system that will do this.
Yes, sir. Excuse me. It is called the C, the number 4, Ever system. And it's currently being used in courthouses and other cannabis facilities across the country. So if they have managed to, meet the level to exist in federal facilities, I believe that they will more than cover our needs.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Peterson?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
No other questions, ma'am. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Appreciate your testimony.
Appreciate you.
Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward.
Good evening.
Welcome, sir.
My name is Tom Dreyer, spelled like the ice cream, D-R-E-Y-E-R. And I have a couple of hats on tonight. The first one is as a planner surveyor guy that's actually filling out these applications for clients for the SLUP, CUPs. And actually it's going quite well, and I think I mentioned a couple times ago, 2 meetings ago, that I still am not sure of the fee that's going to be associated with the SLUP, CUP. And it's a detail, but if it's not taken care of, then it can kind of slow the process down. Item number 2, the distance issue, and I'm curious if there's going to be any variance possibilities for that, kind of like a common sense variance. Because here's one example. Downtown, there's a building that takes an entire city block, so that's about 400 feet by 400 feet. In one little corner is a school that's maybe 50 feet by 100 feet. They rent space out of the huge building. But the way the code reads now, that it has to be 500 or 1,000 feet from the entire perimeter of that block, even though it's just in one little corner of the big, huge building. And so it may not seem like much, but say if it was 1,000 feet, you'd have 1,000 feet on one side, 1,000 feet on the other, and the 400-foot block in the middle. So you're basically taking out a 2,500 by 2,500-foot square, which is a half a mile square, out of areas that a marijuana place would be allowed. Just something to think about, just like common sense variance, if you will. But besides that, the application actually is going quite well. You guys have spent a lot of time on it. And my other hat I want to put on just for a second is as a business owner. I own an office building downtown, just east of the museum. It's an old house that's been fixed up as an office space inside. And I am so looking forward to these people that walk by my office being on marijuana rather than the spice or meth that I see. I mean, I hate to say it, these guys are scary, the spice heads and the meth heads. And I know there's been some talk about restricting around some other buildings downtown, and I just wanted to express that I'm really looking forward to seeing some guys, the worst thing they might do is fall asleep in my front lawn. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. No questions. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward.
My name is Linwood Parker, P-A-R-K-E-R. I apologize. I don't have anything prepared, and it's a little bit emotional because this very evening I had to make a decision to put my mom in the hospital because she's been fighting cancer, and the only thing that had been working for her has been cannabis. Due to, the medical things that were set up, she believed that chemotherapy was going to work, and that hasn't worked. The only thing that has worked has been cannabis. I'm also a licensed real estate professional for the last 13 years here, and I represent a number of clients that are looking to find cultivation and retail spaces, and some of the things that are proposed just really don't make sense. As a licensed real estate professional, we've been dealing with a lot of things with Title 21 over the last few years, and that doesn't make sense, and it just makes me shake my head. And, I would just want something that actually made sense. Variances, some of the things that we're dealing with right now, especially in the warehouse space, is parking. And other variances, we have 500 feet from this and 1,000 feet from that, that kind of thing. So, I would just ask that we have a little bit of common sense legislation, rules that make sense, that actually are functional, that will allow a new industry to develop. We all know that there's really uncertain times economically that are going to face our state. I know BP is saying that there isn't going to be any impact locally, but I'm sure that there may be. We don't know what that's going to be. But, again, the other thing is over the last year, I've met many people that have had a positive, result in their life with cannabis. I could go on from cancer, Tourette's, depression, being able to sleep, all kinds of things like that. So I don't know anyone that would be able to get up here and say, hey, look, I drink a lot of alcohol and it's been a real benefit of my life. So, so I would just ask that, we continue to make legislation that actually makes sense for the people, support the individuals that are, that are going out on their own and using their own finances, because right now there isn't any small business loans or anything that you can get in order to start a business. So a lot of these people were cashing in their life savings, 401ks, quitting their jobs, and you know, the entrepreneurial spirit that's alive in, you know, some of the clients that I'm working with is very, very encouraging as a small business owner. And just for example, the team that I'm a part of, we were the #3 real estate team in the state of Alaska. We did 367 transactions. So, you know, I'm not a person that doesn't know what it takes in order to be a small business owner. You know, again, I apologize, but hopefully you guys don't have any questions. If you do, let me know.
Question from Assembly members. Sir, there do not appear to be any. Sorry for what you had to do with your mother.
Thank you.
Never easy. Sir, after you testify, we're going to take about a 10-minute break.
Perfect.
For the good of the body.
My name is Kenny Scollan. Last name is spelled Scollan. I've been before this body before on conditional use permits and the distances from schools, parks, things like that. And we did the same thing and drew circles on maps and found that there was very little left after we looked at a lot of the distances. One of my questions, I guess, and comments would be, is there more of a definition of what is considered a school, what is considered a church, what is considered a daycare? Is a school just a municipality school? Do we have, is it a trade school? Is it Trendsetters? Is it King Career Center? Things like that. So those are some of the things that I wanted to get clarified and want to know if there was maybe a section in the policy that has definitions that would help somebody discern that.
I think there's state law that defines what a school is, and I think it's both public and private schools. So when you say schools, it's large.
Yeah.
And that's a problem with people trying to find areas to operate out of. But keep in mind, if a business is there and a school moves in, that doesn't mean the business has to move out.
Right. But, you know, every time you turn around, a different school pops up, a different daycare pops up, and what type of license, what type of school? If it's school for adults, is that in the same category, or?
We'll have to look at the state law.
Yeah, state law, okay.
But thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Peters?
I was just going to tell you, sir, that if you go and look at ordinance number 2016-16S, and you go to page 53, it has definitions.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
We're now going to take about a 10-minute break, and then we'll get restarted. Set this for 10 minutes. So we you'll take your seats, please. Sorry. Yes, as you come up, clerk wants to remind me, please state your name, spell your last name, and you'll have 3 minutes. So, what? Go down the stand. Anyway, let's continue. Who else wants to testify on this item? You've had 10 minutes. Somebody has got some more thoughts. Welcome, sir.
Hi. Jim Dyer, D-Y-E-R. Thought I might just offer that my company does packaging and containers and labeling, regulatory compliant products. And if you'd like to see some of those products, I could arrange it.
We'd like to do that, sir.
Okay.
Send the clerk your information, the clerk, and she'll get it to us.
I'll do that. Thank you.
So you're talking about, you're going to package marijuana?
Yes.
Okay. Would you make sure that a 6-year-old doesn't take 30 seconds to open it versus a 66-year-old lady half an hour or 2 days later?
Well, it would be compliant with the CFR 1700, which makes it very, very difficult for a child under 5 to open it, okay, and reasonably easy for an adult to open it.
The biggest problem with adults is as they get older, rheumatoid arthritis in their hands.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. But a 6-year-old has teeth and hands that are willing to open anything. Just if you'd look into it.
Okay.
Thank you, sir, for
Thank
being
you.
here. Mr. Steele, what, sir?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question.
Sir?
With regard to the labeling and on the packages and stuff, we have had that problem with spice and with those things changing rapidly and so on and so forth. Are you saying that, or can we expect that you will be doing packaging for folks and that there will be some truth in packaging or contents?
Yes, under the regulations, the truth is rather inescapable, including health and safety warnings, as well as test results and the name of the testing facility and their license number, as well as the cultivation facility and their license number, and finally the retailer and their license number. So if a container is found on a playground, and God forbid, all of that information would still be on it in 999 out of 1,000 cases. And the labeling actually is an output of the inventory tracking system, which all of the cultivators, manufacturers, and retailers are required to use.
Awesome. I wish you huge success in your
Thank you.
enterprise. Thank you.
I'll provide the information as well.
Thank you, sir. We
Okay.
appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
My name is Justin Rowland, R-O-L-A-N-D. First off, thank you guys. You guys work really hard. We really, really appreciate it. The Federal Drug-Free School Zone Act was a reference for the 50 states. It's always been a reference for the 50 states. In research, I cannot find anywhere where it shows that this is actually a law or requirement of the federal government to implement. In the 1970s, the Controlled Substance Act was passed. However, the Controlled Substance Act is very controversial because it regulates purely intrastate activities. The authority to regulate and criminalize drug resides with state governments. Congress only has the authority to regulate intrastate activities. I keep hearing reference to federal government moving in on Colorado businesses that were within 1,000 feet of school zone. However, a couple of things I would like to point out. One, those businesses that were raided, they were all medical marijuana establishments. None of them were recreational. businesses that I can see. 2, they were shut down, not due to a federal law. The feds had the authority to shut down to shut these businesses down because of the state law 1,000 feet. And furthermore, none of their charges were being within sight of 1,000 feet of a school zone. Their affiliation, or their charges were affiliation with drug cartels, racketeering, illegal marijuana cultivation and distributing, money laundering, security fraud, tax evasion, forgery, and investor Ponzi schemes. The reason why the state of Alaska is 500 feet is due to geographical restrictions. We are so crammed into such a small space all the way across the state of Alaska. This is something the lower 48 does not deal with. We have much, or they have much more room to spread, their drug-free school zones wider than we do. I would also like to take a moment to talk about botulism and marijuana concentrates. I would also maybe like to have a meeting with one of you guys, because that's a whole lot longer conversation than I have for 3 minutes. So maybe I could email you, or we could speak sometime.
I appreciate it.
Perfect. So we'll skip that one. The third is we need a safe place to consume cannabis, and I mean smoking cannabis. Please do not ban pot clubs or cafes. I've been to Denver now several times over the last 2 years, and even me as a marijuana consumer, I don't like walking down the street and smelling smoked weed. I mean, it's just not professional. Denver has even mentioned that it's an issue, and they're looking at lifting some of their social club bans. So please look at that. I know you guys are, and you guys are doing a really good job. Please allow your residents and the 2 million tourists that may visit this summer a safe place to smoke and consume cannabis. People are afraid of this, I think, because they think it's a bed for criminal activity, but you guys have had a working marijuana social club model for a year. There's not been one citation, not one public smoking ticket. It appears like it's working. I think it's actually making Anchorage safer. So thank you, guys.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from Assembly members? Don't appear to be any questions. Thank you, sir. Welcome to the meeting. How are you?
Doing well. This is my first testimony. It's exciting.
Take a deep breath.
I am a potential retail marijuana owner. I just wanted to speak about the zoning. And while we are absolutely interested in keeping it away from children, 500 feet, 1,000 feet, 1,000 feet gets tricky from anything in Anchorage, but my personal concern was the Public Housing Authority 1,000 feet regulations. One, I would love a little bit more clarity on what Public Housing Authority we're talking about, exactly what, I've talked to the Alaska Financing Corporation, and they have a list, and I'm just curious if there's other lists that I don't know. And then 2, we're looking at the map of Anchorage, and we're looking, and these areas are getting smaller and smaller, and then you throw in public housing 1,000 feet from there, and all of a sudden it gets even smaller. And so we're a little concerned with landlords charging insane prices that basically keep us out of the business. And we just want to enter into this business like we would any other. So while I completely understand regulations and keeping it out of the hands of those who shouldn't have it, I just am asking that we don't zone me out of business, please.
Ma'am, could we get your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Lily Bosshart, Bosshart.
Okay. Mr. Flynn has a question. Mr. Flynn, sir?
Not a question, just Ms. Bosshart, a nice young woman, Jen, I forget your last name, who's a local attorney working on this issue, and at one point, amongst the, 400 or 500 bazillion emails I've received on this issue, I think she had a list of all the public housing facilities. You might ask her to share that with you.
Fantastic.
For your edification.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. There are no other questions. Thank you. Good luck. Anybody else wish to testify on this item, please come forward. You what? Nobody wish to testify on this item? Okay. Seeing and hearing no one, public testimony on this item is closed.
Mr. Chairman,
Ma'am.
move to postpone action on AO 2016-16S and AO 2016-3S to the meeting of February 9th.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any
Thank you.
objection from the body? Seeing none, so ordered by the body. Ms. Johnston, do you have any objection to that?
That'd be fine.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Ms. Johnston, do you have any objection to that?
No.
Thank you both. This meeting is over with. Meeting's over with.